pronouns well and not confusingly, right, then the reader knows when you say he, it, this, okay, the reader knows exactly what you are referring to. And that is cohesion. It helps us to use referent words to connect ideas across sentences without repetition. Okay. Signposting is slightly different in the sense that when I move from one, let's say I write 3 sentences explaining an idea. Okay. I write 3 sentences explaining an idea. Now within one paragraph, right? Or even between paragraphs. I've written 3 sentences explaining an idea. Now I think I should give an example for what I have explained already, right? So now how do I tell my reader that I'm going to, in my 4th sentence, I'm going to talk about an example. I will use the words, for example. Okay. Now, for example, is the signposting device, which tells my reader, okay, the first 3 then were explanation sentences. And then this one is actually looking at an example specifically, right? So we can do this also with larger texts, like, for example, sometimes, okay, sometimes you will write a whole paragraph of explanation about a theory in academic writing, okay? And then you might give an example in the next paragraph, right? Now, how do you help the reader understand how those 2 paragraphs are connected? By using the word for instance, okay? You're alerting the reader to the idea that, okay, that paragraph was the explanation. This next paragraph is the actual example that they're giving for me to help to understand better, right? Let's take another example. Let's say you're writing an essay that has 3 main points, okay? How are you going to show your reader that something is like you're moving from one point to the next point, okay? You can't say something like, okay, now let's move to the next point, because that is a very speech kind of thing that we do. So we can't do that in writing, okay? Instead, what we will do is we might say, okay, when we start off the paragraphs, we might say firstly and talk an entire paragraph about the first argument. Secondly, and then we talk about the second argument. Thirdly, and talk about the last argument. Or finally, and talk about the last argument, right? So, signposting devices are just helping us to show when we shift paragraphs, or even within a paragraph when we're shifting directions in the text, okay? Right? I'm going from an example to a conclusion. To show that shift in the direction, that is when we use signposting devices. So cohesion helps us to build connection links across the sentences by using referring words. Signposting helps us to do the linking, but now it's showing how the argument, the direction of the argument is changing. Am I talking about an example? Am I talking about a conclusion? Am I disagreeing with the previous point? What am I doing with the text? Okay, so it's a clue to help people understand how that happens. Is that clear? Can they use any pronoun in signposting? No. Signposting has very specific words like these examples that have been given to you, right? There might be other words, but we don't use pronouns. Pronouns are used only for cohesion. So in signposting, we can't use pronouns. I mean, they don't play that function. Okay, when you think about what the function is of these words, then you will realize that pronouns help us to refer to other ideas. So they help us build the links between ideas, but they don't help us to indicate whether an argument is changing or whether it's an example. That is not done by a pronoun. Okay. Okay, great. Okay, so good questions. Like that, if you have any other questions, you can ask. Okay, right. I did skip this. Again, I will come back to this in case we have some more time. But these are exercises that you can also try and do together. Maybe get together with a friend of yours and try to see whether you can do these on your own. Okay. I won't be taking you through this. Okay. In hedging, right? I think I touched on this last time also, but I think I also again rushed through this section. So I'm doing it a little bit more in detail today. I mentioned last time that when we talk about hedging, we talk specifically about this idea of when we don't want to give a very firm conclusion. Okay, right? So if you want to, like, this is a bit more difficult to understand, guys, until we start reading and doing some activities. So I will take you through those activities as well. But you will realize that when you talk about hedging, okay, we use it primarily when we are trying to draw any kind of conclusion, right? Or when we want to make a claim, because we know that research is always changing. And sometimes it's not always possible to predict whether our findings are going to be correct for the rest of human history. Okay. Sometimes we might not be sure whether we have all the information to make this claim. Okay. So, for example, we can make a statement like this, right? We can make a statement like this. Lung cancer is caused by smoking. Okay. Lung cancer is caused by smoking. So we can say that. Now, the problem with saying that is if we look at some data available in the medical field, it will show that people who have not smoked in their life, have never smoked, okay, they also sometimes get lung cancer. Okay. So now we have a problem, no? When we make a claim saying lung cancer is caused by smoking, what is the problem with that statement? It is not the truth in every case. Okay. Maybe for a large majority, that might be the case. Perhaps they have smoked and they have smoked very heavily, and so they have gotten these cancers, right? But what about those who have never smoked, never even lived with a person who has smoked? Supposing they have lung cancer, now our claim does not support their case, isn't it? Right? So in research, we have these kind of problems that crop up a lot of the time. Sometimes we want to say something, but we are not sure whether it will 100% explain the whole phenomenon or the thing that we are studying, right? So in those cases, what we do is talk about hedging language. We try to use what we call modal verbs. Okay. Oh my God, I forgot to change this today as well. Just a minute. It's not models. Jeez. Okay. Right. Modals. The technical term is modal auxiliary. Okay. Modal auxiliary. Let me put it on the chat. That is the technical term. So if you're Googling it, you can have a look at modal auxiliary. Oh. Okay. That means auxiliary means it's not one of the main verbs. It's not a main verb, but it is something that is kind of necessary for us to build a verb phrase. Okay. So we use modal auxiliaries, or to shorten them, we say modals. Okay. Modals to help us say stuff like this. It's not only modal verbs that are used. There are other words also. We have couple of adverbs that we use. Probably, possibly, adverbs like that also can be used as part of hedging language. But the main idea of hedging is that we are not sure when we are making a statement whether it will 100% explain all the cases of what we are noticing, right? Whether we have read the data and we are 100% sure that ours is the only explanation possible, right? So that's not a usual thing that we do when we do research. We understand that sometimes we might be reading the data from one angle, one perspective. And if somebody else reads it from another perspective, it might be different, right? I don't know if I should tell you this and spoil your minds, but there is a saying, especially when we work with arts faculty researchers, we always say there's a saying that says like lies, damn lies, and statistics. Okay, lies, damn lies, and statistics. Right? That means even if you have statistics or numbers, okay, it depends on how you are reading those numbers, okay, from where you have got the information. For example, let me give you a very quick example. Let's say I put a survey in this classroom. And I ask, okay, who has a problem with joining online classes? Okay. Now, supposing there are 1 or 2 students who don't even have access to a stable email connection. Okay, right? They can't access the form I'm sending, so they won't put their answers, right? So we don't know these 2-3 students who have no access to email will not answer at all, right? Let's say there are a few of you are very eager to do online classes. You all will think, my gosh, this is the chance. All of you all will answer for sure. Then there are few people who are like, karat natat kamak ne kind of situation. So some of them may not answer the survey. Okay. Now, when I look at the survey, I have to know, right? I have to keep in mind that it is only a small percentage of my class that has answered this, right? So now when I draw conclusions, let's say majority has said, oh yes, we can do online classes, okay? I can't just say, yeah, majority of students are fine. They all have internet connections. They are fine, okay? That's not how I can draw conclusions, because I should also keep in mind that there may be 1 or 2 students who have not even answered because they don't have a connection to answer. Okay. Or there might be students who are really fed up of online teaching. They don't want to be in class. They also wouldn't have answered. Okay. So when I say a majority of respondents are happy to have online classes, I have to be careful, right? So I will instead say, it appears that the majority of students in this class are okay with online classes, okay, or are happy to have online classes. You understand the difference in what is happening here, right? When we take data, we have to be very careful in how we read and understand or interpret that data. Okay, just because we have a number, it doesn't mean that that number gives you the full picture of what is happening. Okay, so if we take census statistics, for example, okay, census statistics also are, if you look at the data, there can be a lot of ways in which certain communities or certain people groups get left out of the census statistics, right? Of course, the census department tries as much as possible to cover everyone, but there are possibilities where people are being left out or excluded, right? So there is no representational way in which they get into the data. So they have to keep in mind whenever CBSL publishes their reports, it depends on the kind of data they have gathered, the kind of households they have gathered, what is the proportion of the income. All of those play a part in how we read data. Okay. So now my main point is, okay, when we read that data, when we draw conclusions, we can't just say, this means this, right? We cannot just say that because that is wrong. So when you are writing academically, wherever you are making a claim, wherever you are making a conclusion, it is advisable to use hedging language to show that you know there can be some loss of data, some loss of perspective in the way that you are reading your data. Okay, right. We'll do some examples. I'm not sure whether this is clear to you, but if you have questions, please send, okay? Yes, may can be used as a modal verb, sure. May is one of the modal verbs. The others are will, can, could, should, right? Most of the time we use may, could, and can in those three other ones that are mostly used for hedging. Words like should will come when you want to recommend something. Okay, so for example, you want to say, okay, this company, after the case study you have done and you have looked at the analysis and all of that, when you're making recommendations, you will have to use the word they should do this. Okay, that means you're suggesting very strongly that they take this action. Okay, but we can't force people to do something. So we say you should, right? Now, if you want to force people to do something, you will say must. Must is also a modal verb. You must do this. That means you don't have a choice. Okay. But in terms of academic writing and hedging language, particularly, the modals that we will use are most likely going to be may, can, or could. Okay. Should will come when we are making recommendations. We will not use will and must because they are very definite, no? Right? You will do this or you must do this is very specific. So unless you really need to reuse those words, we will avoid them. They don't help us with hedging language in terms of academic writing. Okay. Hedging is smoothing the text. Yeah, it's a little bit more than just smoothing it out. Yeah, I think I understand what you're trying to say. But it is to make sure that we are conveying ideas with an appropriate amount of uncertainty. Okay. We don't want to say things very definitely if that is not really the case. Okay. So what we are doing with hedging languages, we are covering our back. Okay. That means we are being careful or cautious in the kinds of conclusions that we are drawing. So yes, in a way, you are smoothing the language over, but it is a bit more than that, right? No, not just, you can't just use hedging everywhere also, guys, right? So when you have to make a claim and when you have to take a definite stand, then you must use the proper verb, okay? But most of the time in research, we try to show that we are considering all options, right? Try to remain a bit open about our conclusions. And so most likely in conclusions or claims, we will use modal verbs. Nowhere else. Please keep in mind, you can't just use modal verbs everywhere. You can use them when you're talking about claims or drawing conclusions. And those are the only two places where we can use modal verbs. Even within the modal verbs, remember, may, can, could, those will be the three most dominant modal verbs that we will use. If you're talking about recommendations, then should or maybe must might also come just there. Okay. But there are other words also like probably, possible, okay, perhaps. Those are also all words. They're not modals per se, but they are associated with hedging, right? So let's go back to my smoking example, okay? Smoking and lung cancer. So I can say, instead of just saying lung cancer causes smoking, now because I know that there are other cases that, well, smoking has not been the causal factor. So I can say, it appears to be, or perhaps it appears to be that the majority of cases of lung cancer are caused by smoking. Something like that. Okay. Majority of cases of lung cancer are caused by smoking. It appears that a majority of cases of lung cancer are caused by smoking, right? Okay. Let's try and do an activity. I think this will be helpful, no? Yeah. Right. Can you just quickly identify any hedging expressions in these sentences, in this sentence first? If you don't think that there is any hedging expression, then you say no hedging. Okay. So can you all put your answers in the chat, please? Yeah. Do you spot any hedging expressions here? You have to look at the verbs, no? Right? Verbs will give you the clue. Right, good. Okay, so one person has answered could have been changed. That's the full verb. Okay, so if we ask to underline, we will underline the full verb phrase could have been changed. Okay, so what are they saying in this sentence? It's important to understand the context of the sentence. Okay, there is no difficulty in explaining the price structure of the new product. Okay, so here you can see there's no doubt, no, there's no hedging language in this first part of the first clause. There is no difficulty in explaining the price structure of the new product. Very straightforward. Okay, the difficulty is, now here also it's still certain, the difficulty is in thinking of a series of steps by which it could have been changed. Okay, by which it could have been changed. So what are they saying? There's no problem with explaining the price structure as it is now, right? The issue is in how it could have been changed over the past. Okay, right? So there we are not trying to say that, okay, what happened, how they changed it bad. What we are saying is, okay, it may not be bad, but it could have been changed in the past like this. Okay, so very tentative language there. Second one, where is the hedging language? So this is a good example for where hedging language is unnecessarily used. Okay, right? Now, what the sentence is trying to say is, for example, it is possible to see that in January, the sales of this product rose considerably. Okay, now, of course, we are looking at this without the rest of the information in the paragraph, right? But what do we want to see? We want to say, in January, the sales of this product rose considerably. That's what we want to observe. Okay. Now, why do we need to hedge that? That information is directly there in the data. So there is a rise in the sales of this product. Okay. So sometimes this happens with academics. Now, sometimes because we're so used to using hedging language, we overuse it as well. Okay. Right? So don't overuse hedging language. Now, this is a sentence where I think it is not necessary to use hedging language, but there is, for some reason, they have used it, right? So maybe if we look at the wider paragraph, we might understand why they are using hedging language here. But when we read the sentence, it's not strictly necessary to look at this kind of sentence and say it is possible to see that in January. We want to just make an observation. We are making an observation. In January, the sales of this product was considerable, right? But for the purposes of this answer, it is possible is the hedging phrase. Okay. So good. Whoever answered that, thank you. Third question. Can you tell me where are the hedging languages? Maybe necessary. Yes, maybe necessary. Okay. I think only 2 students are awake in this class. Huh? I'm getting messages only from the same 2 people. Okay. Others, I need your answers as well. Please engage. It may be necessary for the student to leave the hostel if the university decides to stop all academic activities. Now, this is a very good use of model language to hedge, right? Because if you notice, if the university decides to stop all academic, so it's a conditional phrase, right? If this happens, something else is going to happen. Okay. So there also we are not sure what is going to happen. If the university does this or decides this, then it may be necessary. Okay. It may be necessary. So again, we are not sure just because the university decides to stop academic activities. Sometimes the hostels may be open, they may close. So depending on that, it may be necessary for the student to leave the hostel. Okay, so this is a good use of the word may in order to hedge what we are not certain about, right? Remember, hedging is always when we are not certain of a claim or a statement that we are going to make. So you have to always test to see whether it's really necessary or not. Okay. Look at 4, 5, and 6. Can you tell me where the hedging expressions are in 4, 5, and 6? In sentence 4, what is the hedging expression there? Sorry, is somebody trying to speak? Please unmute, it's okay. That's some problem, no? It's okay. Okay, I've got one answer. Someone else? Sentence 4. Okay. Yep. Yep. Okay, thank you. I'm getting answers. Finally, a few of you are awake at least. Okay. Two things are happening here. Okay. Right. So in 4, there is experimental work to show that a week or 10 days may not be, right? Excuse my drawing skills on the screen. It's a bit difficult to show properly. Okay. May not be long enough. Okay. May not be long enough. And a fortnight to 3 weeks is probably the best theoretical period. So probably the best, right? Two hedging expressions, both used quite well. One is trying to show us that the previously assumed period of time, a week or 10 days, may not be long enough, right? That's important to start by claiming that, okay, previous research has said this, but we are disagreeing that it may not be enough time. And a fortnight to 3 weeks. Do you know what a fortnight is? Anyone knows what a fortnight is? No, a fortnight is 2 weeks. Okay. It's a kind of if I'm not mistaken, in older English, I mean, language changes over time, right? We have talked about this before. So I think we used to have they used to refer to a week as night, 7 night, okay, 7 nights. So night and a fortnight. So fort, I think, comes from the word 14, night and fortnight. So we have lost the night. Nobody uses that now, right? Unless you read like books like Jane Austen or something like that, right? So Victorian era novels, if you're reading, then you might come across this one. But fortnight is still fairly, it's a fairly formal word. So we don't use it often. But in research writing, if you're talking about a period of time, that is a place where we can use, right? Generally in speech, we don't use fortnight, okay? But fortnight comes from the phrase 14 nights. Okay, so fortnight means 2 weeks. So a fortnight to 3 weeks. I don't know of a special word for 3 weeks. So don't ask me what that is. Fortnight to 3 weeks means 2 weeks to 3 weeks is probably the best theoretical period, right? So again, now we are not sure. We don't want to make this claim surely that 2 to 3 weeks is enough time, okay? Because now we don't know whether future research will change that also, okay? So we are saying 2 to 3 weeks is probably the best theoretical period. With the data that is there for us now, probably. That means there's a high probability for it to be the best period, right? In the 5th sentence, if you're looking at the 5th sentence, conceivably is the main idea there, okay? Sorry guys, I'm going to change the color because it's horrible, okay? So conceivably is again a very, very rare word. We don't really use it. Even in academic writing, it's not fairly it's not fairly regularly used. Okay, so don't worry if you haven't seen it before. I don't use it a lot either, so that's fine. But if you see it anywhere in your writings, you should know that it is one of the hedging terms that we can use. Conceivably means to conceive of something is to think of something, or to kind of figure out something, right? So to conceive means to bring a new idea to birth. Okay. So conceivably means then to do something that is like to think a bit differently about something. Okay. So different forms changing at different rates and showing contrasting combinations of characteristics were present in different areas. So conceivably, right, or to what we can understand, there were multiple differences occurring in different areas, right? So the rest of the sentence doesn't have any other hedging word. It is only conceivably, which is an adverb that comes at the beginning of a sentence to tell us that this is it's a hedging sentence. Okay. Number 6, can you quickly send me your answers for the 6th sentence? It's very straightforward, no? One possibility. That's the only hedging phrase there. Would not have resorted to violence if they had been given enough notice. They are all not specifically hedging language, but because they come with the word possibility, they carry a little bit of the hedging work. Okay. But in general, when we look at would and had been, those are not normally hedging phrases. Okay. They are not normally used as hedging phrases. They have to come with another hedging word for them to carry that kind of idea. So I understand why your answers are coming, including that. It's not wrong, but the specific hedging phrase is possibility. Possibility is the noun there. One possibility is that the students would not have resorted to violence. Okay. Right. Any questions on hedging before we move on? Right. Good. So guys, if you are confused, you can also still go and look at, thank you, go and look at the past papers to see the kind of question that you will get. Okay. Generally, it's to do with, I think we will ask you to write 1 or 2 phrases of where hedging has happened in the paragraph, right? So it's fairly straightforward. If you know what hedging looks like, any form it takes, you are able to judge whether this is a hedging language or not. Okay. So don't worry too much about it, but have a look at the past papers. Again, if we have enough time at the end of the course, I will take you through some of the past papers, right? Okay. The final feature that we come to is the idea of responsibility. And I am not sure that I'm going to use a lot of time for this, because if I understand correctly, this section has been covered in the first part of your course, which was taught to you by Miss Kumudu Kapiyangoda, right? She would have spoken to you about referencing, citation, plagiarism, all of those things. Okay. So this is just a reminder that responsibility is one of the features of academic writing. Okay. Now this is really important for us to understand also, especially because we live in an increasingly social media driven world. Okay. So now I'm sure when you're scrolling on TikTok, if you have social media, that is, if you're scrolling on TikTok or Instagram or even Facebook Reels, right? I'm sure you'll be seeing a lot of people who say, look, I'm a psychologist. This is what's happening in your brain. Or here's the area that I have studied. Let me explain it to you. It's all good, right? It's all interesting. So if you're interested in knowing things, those are interesting reels to watch. But the problem is that with social media, a lot of people also make claims without actually taking responsibility for the things they say. Okay. So a lot of people also just, they just read one article and they be like, oh, because this article says this, it must be true. Okay. Whereas there might be loads of research out there that shows that this is not true. Okay. Or you have to take it with a lot of other important factors in mind, right? Um, so my idea is, what I'm trying to say is really that when we do academic writing, it is kind of exactly the opposite of making, reels on a specialized subject, right? For a short 30-second reel, you can read one article, read one person who has written on it, and then be like, okay, I understand this topic, right? For academic writing, you cannot do that. It is your responsibility to show that you have done all the work that is necessary, right? So even if you quote 3 people in your article, right, you have to make sure that all of the information you are presenting is accurate and that you are taking responsibility for it, right? And this is one of the main reasons why we struggle now when AI comes into the picture, because AI is drawing from so many different sources. And I mean, a very recent research study also showed that it has 30% of the information it offers is also hallucination, right? That means it is trained to give you answers. So it will never accept that it can't give an answer. Sometimes it says, whatever, check this information or whatever, but a lot of the times it is hallucinating or imagining information. So that's a problem when we come to academic writing, because we cannot hallucinate. Okay? Academic writing cannot have any claim or any conclusion that cannot be backed up with evidence. So the last feature of academic writing is responsibility, where you have to make the choice to take responsibility for everything that is in your article or your assignment. Okay, so it's very, very serious. Even if you want to use AI to help you, remember that you have to go through each and every claim that is written to double check whether this is in fact a fair claim or a fair argument that can be made. Otherwise, when you are submitting any article or any assignment, you are basically saying, I am fully taking responsibility for all the work that is here, right? So it's a very serious thing. This is where we talk about plagiarism, borrowing from other people without actually saying who we borrowed from, or we take somebody else's idea and pretend that it is our own idea. Okay. These are very easily traceable, especially if somebody is an expert in the field. Like, for example, yesterday, my sister, she works as an editor for not an academic publication, but something very close, right? So she works as an editor there. And she was asking me about some language related, English in Sri Lanka related readings. Okay. And because I am reading, that is my field, I already know everybody who has written good work in the field. Okay. So I was saying, okay, did you see this person's article, that person's article, this person's article? They should have referred here, right? So when you are writing, you have to keep in mind that everything you put in the assignment will be double checked by somebody who is a good academic, right? So in that sense, please make sure that you are citing properly, you are referencing properly, you are making sure that there is no hallucination in your paper, okay? You cannot just imagine things and put it there and expect people to not catch on to this, right? And so that's why doing everything with AI is not very advisable because it can land you in quite a bit of trouble, right? Even when you're paraphrasing and summarizing, we will talk about this later also. Remember that you have to stick to the main ideas. You cannot change the idea just because you are talking about it. Okay. When you are summarizing or paraphrasing, you're still required to bring in the idea that is related to what is the person has already said. So you can't change the idea to suit what you want to say, etc. Right? So I think, I mean, a lot of the times, if you go back and read Adam Smith, you know Adam Smith, the guy who is the reason for us understanding money and economics the way we do. Okay. If you go back and read his original work, you will be surprised how many ideas have not made it into our modern understanding of economics. Okay. When he talks of the wealth of nations, so some of those ideas have not actually come in or been connected properly. And so our modern economics is founded sometimes on partial information, right? So when you are academically minded, when you are writing a text, you cannot give partial information. You have to make sure that the whole picture is captured accurately. Then you can go on to comment on it, saying, I disagree or I completely agree. That is different, right? But when you represent somebody's ideas, it has to be done as accurately as possible. And a lot of that is to do with language use and how we frame our sentences. So please make sure that you are doing that. And easy, just keep citing. Now it's super easy to cite. Word documents have inbuilt citation systems. So you can just use that, right? It's really, really not difficult at all. Make sure you are doing the honest and the responsible. Okay. Yes, APA guidelines help us to use ideas responsibly. What this means is it's not only APA, there are a couple of other citation methods as well, citation styles as well. Like Chicago, there's the Harvard style, there's MLA for language related things. Those are some of the more popular ones. Okay. I think if you're quoting legal texts, there are other citation methods as well. These guidelines help us to cite properly. So if you're citing a part of a book or something like that, you immediately go and check, okay, in APA, how does in-text citation happen? That means as you are mentioning in the paragraph, in brackets, when you write the person's name and that information, what is the information that goes there? And then you have a matching longer citation or reference at the end of your text. Okay. So there's always two things that you have to do in APA. That's the style. You kind of, in the text, you have to mention the author and the year. And if you're quoting directly, you have to also give the page number. And then every time you do that, there has to be a matching reference in the reference list, right? That means that you can quote 5 times within an article, 5 times from the same text, okay? But it doesn't matter. On all 5 times, you have to mention author and year and page number if necessary. But at the end of the reference, there has to be one full reference text that shows me all the information. That means the person's name, the year, the full title of the publication, the page numbers if it's necessary, publisher. So all of those information has to come at the end with the references list that you have. That's how APA style works. There are other different styles that work slightly differently. But that's fine, right? You guys need to make sure that whichever style you use, stick to one style per assignment or per article. Don't jump from APA to MLA to Chicago in the middle of one article. Don't do that, please. If you're doing one thing, just choose one style and use that right throughout. What we are looking for is consistency. We want to be able to say that, okay, this student has demonstrated to me that they know from where their ideas are coming, they know from which text they're taking, they have understood the argument well, and they're able to summarize and paraphrase ideas without any problem, right? So that's where you will go. I should also mention that citation is quite difficult, so you may not get it right in your first year. That's okay. As much as possible, please try to double check, right? It takes a lot of time, and it is not possible to do this if you are working at the last minute. You can submit a citation list at the last minute, but if you make mistakes, then you will have to take responsibility for those mistakes, right? Because these are very serious mistakes. So be careful. Keep yourself time to go through your reference lists, your citations. At least keep a day in the middle just to double check all of these things before you hand in your assignment, right? That is the usual thing that I will advise all of you. It will take a long time, right? And as you are writing in brackets, even if you're not doing the full citation for your draft, just at least put the name and the year of the publication so that you know that you have to come back and do that citation properly. Okay, that's a piece of advice from my end. But if you follow this link from the slide, you notice that they have really good examples in all the main types of ways in which you will be citing. So please make sure you double check. Okay, that's all it is. You're just double checking and making sure that you're paraphrasing to get the accurate idea. Okay. I'm going to quickly take you through this and then give you a couple minutes break, right? Okay, maybe not. Let me give you 2 minutes of a break now. If you need to have a bathroom break, you can run and use the washroom and come back. We'll come back it's 2:28 on my phone. So we'll come back in 3 minutes, okay? Okay, I hope everybody's back after a very short break. I'm sorry, guys. I am trying not to keep you after 3 o'clock. All the other lecturers in the course have kept their classes 15, 20 minutes after the finishing time. From experience that more than 2 hours is difficult to concentrate on mine. So I don't want to do that to you. In case we can't cover, of course, and we are still online, I might extend the time, but let's try and finish the work within the time that is given to us. Okay, that's why I'm running like a mad person. I'm sorry. I know it's not ideal, but let's try and finish this up. Okay, so the last thing that we come to in terms of second module is this idea of language of questions. We do this section primarily because it is really important for you guys to understand what a question is asking you to do, right? So at university, I'm not sure whether you were trained like this at A levels to answer questions like this, but now that you have shifted to English medium also, we try to help you understand what is expected of you when you have these kind of questions given to you. Okay, so you'll be facing questions for the rest of your 4 years here in university. So let's try and understand how to break down the question to see the parts of the question and how they link to each other, right? So this is just to help you understand how to answer questions better. Right. So here you have the full question. Examine the socio-political effects of the Industrial Revolution on European societies in the 18th century. Let's go step by step, right? So when you see this kind of a big question, it's quite wide. It's dealing with socio-political effects, Industrial Revolution, European societies, 18th century, okay? Lots of different factors are coming into the question. Let's try to see how they're linked. Right. So first thing you have to ask is, what is the broad area that the question is targeting? Okay. What is the broad subject matter or specific topic that is the concern of this question? In this case, the whatever has been highlighted in purple, the Industrial Revolution, that's the broad scope of the question, right? So we are targeting precisely a specific period in human history where we find a revolution caused by the industrializing of countries. Right? So we are just focusing on that broad topic. Now, within that broad topic, we will be looking at a specific aspect of focus, okay? A specific focus in the question. That means we are not just looking at everything that happened in the Industrial Revolution. It is the socio-political effects of the Industrial Revolution, right? So that's now in the wide topic of Industrial Revolution. You can talk about many things, right? But we are talking specifically about a smaller focus area, which is socio-political effects. So Industrial Revolution, big topic. Within that, we are looking specifically at socio-political effects. Then you look at what is the instruction or the comment, right? What is the verb that comes at the beginning of the question? We'll look at a couple of different verbs in a little while, but this instruction or comment is also really important, okay? Because it tells you exactly how much you have to explain, what kind of analysis you have to do, what is the question actually asking you to do. So here the word used is examine. So examine requires us to analyze a little bit in detail. Analyze what? Examine what? The socio-political effects of the Industrial Revolution. Okay. Then, oftentimes in larger essay questions like this, apologies, I'm not sure whether you can hear the Manyo command which is going down my lane. If you can, apologies. Okay. Right. So here we are looking at socio-political effects of the Industrial Revolution, but we are getting a further restriction. Often in big essay type questions, you will get a further restriction. That means from the broad topic to the focus to a further much smaller restriction. So without talking about all the socio-political effects that happened during the Industrial Revolution, which can be quite large still, we are talking specifically about the effects that are happening or that are taking place in European societies in the 18th century, right? So the effects that are coming on European societies in the 18th century. So we are not interested in the rest of the globe. All of them may have experienced the Industrial Revolution at the same time, but we are only looking at European societies, right? So we don't look at the American societies. We don't look at African societies during that time. We don't want to know what is happening there. We are looking specifically at European societies in the 18th century, because the Industrial Revolution also has socio-political effects right up to modern times, right? Okay. So we don't want all of those effects either. We want effects that are taking place on European societies and specifically within one particular century. Okay. So those are four main things that we look at. We look at first, what is the verb or the instruction that is given to us? Then what is the broad topic? What is the narrower focus area? And within that focus area, are there any further restrictions that are happening in the question, right? Viewpoint is a more large question. Okay, so this is not connected to specific phrases in the question, but a viewpoint helps you understand what the examiner expects of you as you are writing the question. Okay, how do I meet the expectations of the setter of this question? Okay, why have they asked us this question? What do they actually want to see from me, right? So I know sometimes in some subjects, especially at A levels, you can just write everything that you have memorized. Okay, but that's not a very good and not a very sustainable way of doing university work, because you can't write everything that you know, right? Remember, you are university students now, so the amount of knowledge you have is also huge. So you just can't spill everything that you want out. Instead, you have to take the time to understand, what does the setter actually want from me? What if I demonstrate something, what will I need to do to get good marks on this question, right? In this case, I have to show that I can narrow down to certain socio-political effects that were really prevalent in European societies and within the specific 18th century. So I have to narrow down all my knowledge to that. In case I am not able to narrow down to any of these restrictions, I won't be meeting the setter's expectation. So it's always helpful to imagine yourself as the exam setter and think, okay, what do I need to do in order to score a decent mark on this? Okay. So now I know that I'm not sure how many of you sit and analyze questions like this, but what I'm trying to say is it's good to spend some time analyzing questions before you start writing. Okay. A lot of the time when we go on exam duty, I do exam duty for the arts faculty specifically. Sometimes the student just gets the paper and they just start writing. Okay. Now, as an exam setter myself, I know that the student is not putting any thought into what they're writing. They're just writing down whatever they have remembered, they start with, right? And whoever is marking the paper is not going to give them marks for the amount of information that they have given. They are only going to give them specific marks for the specific limitations and the restrictions in the question. So always take 5 minutes at the beginning of any exam to read all the questions through without rushing. Look for these. What is the broader topic? Where is the focus narrowing? What is the verb that they're using? So what do they expect me to do? And any further restrictions and the viewpoints if you have, right? Here are some verbs that you will encounter. You may have already seen them in your assessments, in your mid-semester assessments, okay? So when they use the word account for, right? That means we are expecting you to give us reasons for whatever the question is on. Okay, so you are supposed to, when you say account for, they are really asking you to give reasons for why something is happening. Analyze, we expect you to take one idea, break it down into smaller sections, right? Look at the statement, evaluate it, think, okay, how can I examine or explain this in a way that is useful? Okay, so whatever idea or concept will be a big concept, right? In order to understand all the smaller factors that are involved in it, you have to take it into small separate pieces and analyze them, examine them. Think about like putting something under the microscope, right? You see everything big. So in that sense, analysis requires us to give more details and give more details to try and understand what is going on. Okay. Compare, you already know, we set 2 or 3 things side by side, and we want to show either similarities or differences. Often when somebody says compare and contrast, they expect you to give an objective answer. That means you evaluate both sides and say, okay, so this, because it has more benefits, is the better option, right? So although it says compare and contrast, you can't just stop with compare and contrast. You may have to commit to say, okay, either this option is better or that option is better, or both have their pros and cons. We expect some sort of an opinion from you at the end of the question, right? So contrast is there. Consider is a little bit more abstract verb. So they might be asking you to describe, give your thoughts, tell us what you understand of this subject, right? So when you say consider these things, then we have to think about our thoughts and why we think those things, right? Critically examine or analyze. Again, these might be quite commonly used, okay? When we say critically examine something, we expect that you will look at the statement that's given to you and see if there are any problems with that statement, right? So we expect you to critically engage. That is, you question the statement. Question, okay, why? Right? If we are giving a statement like, for example, okay, let's take an easy one. Let's say English medium is good for management faculty students, right? Critically examine this statement, okay? What I expect as an examiner is that you will tell me why, okay? Is it actually good? What are the benefits that are there? But also what are the negatives that can be coming out of this that we don't see? Is it actually helpful for students who are going to management faculties to study in the English medium? Okay, so I expect you to question the statement and give me an honest evaluation or a assessment of the subject of the question itself. Okay, so often in critically examine type questions, there will be an underlying, like an assumption, what we all think is true, right? So for example, I gave you, everybody thinks English medium is superb for management faculty students. Okay, that's an assumption. What we are actually asking you to do is ask the question, is it actually good? Right? That is the way that you do critically examine questions. Define is quite easy, very straightforward. You explain as precisely as possible the meaning of something. Your definitions are by nature, they are detailed. And so get into the details. Don't be scared to get into the details and explain. You are describing and explaining the details of a concept. Evaluate or assess. Right? This is also 2 words that you might find coming in. This is requiring you to give us the value or the importance of whatever is in the question, a concept or an idea. How important or how valuable is it going to be? Okay. So, let's say I ask you evaluate the government's current tax policy. Okay. evaluate or assess the government's current tax policy. What I'm expecting is for you to tell me how important is this tax policy, how helpful or valuable is it in actually addressing problems. Okay, so you are evaluating, you're telling me, okay, is this policy actually good? Is it not? Is there anything that is extremely weak in this policy? All of those information has to be there when you are evaluating or assessing. And illustrating is to be able to describe with details and examples across many scenarios, right? So illustrate, you think of drawing a very detailed picture, okay? I know not everyone is a painter or a artist, but imagine a very detailed picture. That's what we expect when we think about an illustration, right? We expect you to illustrate the main ideas and examples across as many scenarios as possible. Okay. All right. So that's it from me in terms of module 2. Okay. I am going to give you about 5 minutes to ask me any questions or any, if you have any doubts there. In the meantime, can you guys do me a favor and go to your LMS, right? There is a feedback on module 2. Can you guys take about 5 minutes to do that for me, please? So that I have all of your responses. Under module 2, you will have some feedback. Can you go there and let us know what needs to change, what was helpful about this module, what was not? It'll take 5 minutes. You did this last time for me in module 1 also, so that was pretty easy, right? Go and do the same thing now in class, and then let's continue after that. So 5 minutes to do that, okay? Okay, I trust you are all giving some feedback on module 2. We would appreciate it. Like I said, we are going to change the course slightly for the next upcoming batches. So your information and your feedback to us is going to be really important in doing that. Okay, guys, so I will not keep you any longer. I had hoped to cover a little bit more, but that's okay. We can come back after the Urdu break and we will continue to module 3 and I will hopefully have time to cover everything. Again, if you have any questions or doubts, you need to ask me. Fingers crossed, we will meet on site. I don't like online teaching. I know it's very convenient for you guys, but it is extremely frustrating for me as a teacher. Anyway, my hope is that we will come back on site, but even if not, let's see what the faculty says. Okay, we have to wait until the faculty makes a decision. At the moment, we have not been told anything about what's going to happen after the New Year break. So we will come back and you guys will get an announcement on the LMS. So please check your LMS, guys. Sadly for you, the faculty only has holidays for a very few days during New Year. So you can check before lectures start. You will get some update if we are shifting modes of class. Okay. All right. Until then, please go through second module. There are stuff that I couldn't cover in the lecture. So go back and try those exercises on your own. And if you have been able to try them and you have doubts, we will take them up in class whenever we meet. Okay. So until then, you have a good relaxed break for Urdu, and I will see you after that, online or on site as needs be. Okay, guys, thank you. Thank you to those who responded today and made the class engaging. And even if you were quiet and listening and taking notes, thank you for that. See you guys. Take care.